Hey, what's up? My name is Tackless, and today I'm going to be talking about why Symmetra, the hero from Overwatch, is now borderline overpowered. For the longest time, Symmetra was considered the worst hero in Overwatch, and for good reason. Her damage output wasn't great, or well, the range on it was bad. Her abilities weren't very good. She was just everything that she did, other heroes could do better. So she just wasn't considered a very good pick. But Blizzard has given her a big rework and a big buff, giving her some new abilities, a new ultimate and a shield, and, most importantly, increased the range on her weapon. Since she's just more viable in general, we're seeing a lot more of her, and because of that extra range, she's quickly becoming overpowered. Specifically looking on console, which is where I play, her lock-on weapon just does too much damage. Let's talk about the basics of her weapon so that we can figure out exactly why she's so strong. First, it's a beam weapon, and the weapon hits 4 times per second. It has a range of 7 meters, and it has 3 power levels. Level 1 does 7.5 damage per hit. 4 hits per second means that it does 30 damage per second. That in itself is pretty terrible, but more on that. After 1 second of being locked onto a target, the beam becomes level 2. Level 2 does 15 damage per second, so now we're doing 60 damage per second. That's exactly what Winston does. After 1 more second, the beam becomes level 3 and does 30 damage per hit. That means it's doing a whopping 120 damage per second. For some perspective, if Genji landed 100% of his shurikens from his fan, which is the higher damage, faster firing attack, he would do 111.72 damage per second. If the beam disconnects from the target, it has 3 seconds to reconnect before it drops back down to level 1. That's more than enough time to reload, by the way. And, let's not forget the most important part, it's a lock-on weapon. Unlike Winston's weapon, Symmetra has a lot more leeway for moving around after she's locked onto the target. She can move up to 10 meters away after locking on and has a lot more visual mobility. Not to mention, she apparently can do damage briefly through walls. And the beam has some unusual properties. Her weapon can also charge off of unusual items, such as Winston shields, Mei ice walls, and Junkrat traps. She can then use this charge to get quick, easy kills. Once she's locked onto a target, the best strategy is to jump and dodge and be as frustrating to hit as possible. Especially on console, it's very difficult to keep up with a target who doesn't have to aim in your general direction at all. Now, Symmetra's beam has some unusual attributes. Probably the strangest is that she can continue to damage Genji after he swift strikes out of her range. This is because the game code doesn't treat Genji as a fast-moving object, but rather an object that holds still and teleports to the destination after the animation is done. Symmetra's beam can also pierce through D.Va's shield, which is to be expected since other beam weapons can do this, but it's still frustrating. Her beam charges off of Winston's shield, but not Reinhardt's. As mentioned before, her beam appears to do a couple of hits of damage even through walls. This might be attributed to server lag, but the footage here is filmed with my roommate who is using my equally fast internet, so lag should be minimal. In terms of matchups, first, I am not good with Symmetra. I'm actually pretty bad with her. I spend most of my Overwatch time either hiding behind a Reinhardt like a good little healer, or I attack as aggressively and annoying as possible with D.Va with a dedicated Mercy to keep me alive. Symmetra really isn't my cup of tea to play. However, I was still able to get some ridiculous kills. In a 1v1, I'm able to fairly easily win the majority of matchups between me and my roommate. Once again, I'm not saying we're pros, but we're both pretty effective players and we're definitely on equal footing in terms of skill. The toughest enemies for me to deal with were Reaper, Widowmaker, and Bastion. For these 1v1s, I tried not to use any of my abilities besides my primary weapon. Occasionally I used my shield for positioning, but usually I just pressed right trigger. And it is worth noting that my roommate really did try to kill me through all of this. He wasn't just goofing around for footage. Once we switched to quick play, I did a couple of rounds as Symmetra, and I struggled to find my niche just because she doesn't fit my playstyle. But once I got onto some crazy objective points where there were a lot of people and things were happening, I was able to get some just ridiculous kills. For example, I bullied a Roadhog and a Winston both together repeatedly in one game. No one in the support class should be able to bully and beat a Roadhog and a Winston together at the same time when both of them are within their effective range. That's just ridiculous. Now, you might be able to attribute that to really crappy quick play players, but they did end up beating us, so they weren't too bad. For a little bit more perspective on this, Zenyatta is usually considered the off-slayer, off-healer of the support class. He can do some moderate healing, but mostly he can do just some savage damage for a support hero. Assuming that Zenyatta hits 100% of his attacks, not counting Discord orbs, at 46 damage per shot and 2.5 shots per second, he can deal a maximum of 115 damage. Which means that if Zenyatta hit 100% of his attacks, he still wouldn't have the same damage output as Symmetra. And of course there's other variables here that I'm not mentioning, such as headshots and Discord orbs and stuff like that. But I'm mostly just focusing on general normal attacks. Now, am I saying that Symmetra can't be countered? Definitely not. She has a lot of counters, but she's definitely much stronger than she should be. No one in the support class should be able to outslay a tank or outdamage the attack heroes. That's just not reasonable. And maybe Blizzard thinks that having her have to charge up from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, which takes 3 seconds to get fully charged, is a balancing mechanism. But considering how easy it is to charge to max charge, and how easy it is to switch off of one target and immediately engage another, much squishier target with full charge, it becomes very unbalanced really quickly. I'd personally say that Symmetra should either have that time between leveling up increased, so it's maybe a second and a half between levels, or have that time where her levels, the timeout for her levels shortened up. So rather than waiting 3 seconds, it's maybe 1 second. So if she has to reload, tough luck, you lost your charge. Some other ideas would be just outright lowering her damage, or dropping her range just a tad. I believe before the buff it was 5 meters, now it's 7 meters, maybe drop it to 6 meters. So those are my thoughts on Symmetra. I know after getting this footage and gameplay, my roommate definitely agreed with me that Symmetra is doing way more damage than what she should be doing as a support hero, and he was definitely getting frustrated when we were getting this footage. We both get frustrated when we're playing quick play and I'm running a tank or he's running a tank, and the little Symmetra comes in and just destroys us with no effort, no practical skill involved, just because it's a lock-on weapon. Lock-on weapons shouldn't do that kind of damage output, especially from this support class. So, what do you guys think? Do you think she's overpowered? Do you think she's a high skill, high reward kind of player? Do you think that she needs a nerf? Or do you think that she finally gets the power that she so deserves for being such a crappy hero for so long? Definitely let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are. And I will see you guys later.